This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, I'm going to have Shabbos Seitzei as we prepare for Parshas Seitzei. In Parshas Seitzei, one of the mitzvahs in Parshas Seitzei is the inyan of Gershon, of Gittin. And even though the Torah does not use the word get, the Torah just says that you send her away, basically. But the word that is used by the Chachamim for the document of divorce is get. The Mishnah begins in Gittin, Hamevi get mimedina sayam. So, what does the word get mean? What is get? The word get does not appear in the Torah, not in the Chumash, not in the Nevi'im, and not in the Ksuvim. So where does this word come from, and what does it mean? So Tosfos in the beginning of Masechta Gittin, he points out that other shtarais are also called get, like it says in the fourth parak of Gittin, Ein edim choismen ala get, only because of tikkun ha'olam, and it's talking about all shtarais. But nevertheless, that Tosfos is bothered then. If all shtarais, if all documents are called get, why does it just say hamevi get mimedina sayam? It should say hamevi get isha. The answer is, says Tosfos, it doesn't have to say hamevi get isha, because most of the times that it says get, it's talking about a get isha. So in other words, the word get could refer to all shtarais, but mostly when you just see the word get, you know it's talking about a document of divorce. Says Tosfos.
Is there such a thing as a get ish? Why is it called a get isha?
A get ish is when you tell a guy, get a life. But that's not what we're talking about. But halachically, there's only something called a get isha. Fine. Now the question is, why do we write 12 lines in a get? Says, Amar Rabbeinu Tam, Yishum de get, Gematria Yud Beis. But still, why is it called a get? And why are there 12 lines in a get? Well, the Ri said, he heard in the name of Hagoin and the name of Sadia, because it's a get is called V'kasav la Sefer Krisos. In this week's Parsha, you should write for her a document of cutting off. What does that mean? Well, we have to know what is the definition of being cut off. In the Torah, where do we find cutoffs? We find cutoffs between the various Parshas. Between Sefer Bereshis and Shemais in the Sefer Torah, there are 4 lines. Between Shemais and Vayikra, there are 4 lines. Between Vayikra and Bamidbar, there are 4 lines. And between Bamidbar and Devarim, there are 4 lines. Oh, so if that's the case, so let's add up 4 plus 4. Take out your Texas instruments, based on higher mathematics. 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 16. But there are only 12 lines in a get. Says Tosfos, we don't count the 4 spaces in between Bamidbar and Devarim, because Devarim is not a new book. It only repeats and a review of what it said previously. So the reason why a get has 12 lines is because of the 12 lines of cutting off that there are in the Torah between Bereshis and Shemais, Shemais and Vayikra, Vayikra and Bamidbar. And the question would be, what in the world does the
12.
Severance of husband and wife got to do with the spaces in between and the cutting off in the Torah between Bereshis, Shemais, Vayikra, and Bamidbar? Interestingly, there's a sefer called Sefer HaTishbi. Sefer HaTishbi was written by an Achron by the name of Rabbi Eliyahu Bachor. Rabbi Eliyahu Bachor lived in Italy, and this summer I found his grave buried right next to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi of Modena. What's amazing is in Venice, in Lido Island. What's amazing is in the Sefer HaTishbi, some Gedolim were not happy with the author Rabbi Eliyahu Bachor because he didn't have Parnasa, so he moved in with a priest, and the priest supported him for 12 years. He lived in the house of the priest. The priest supported him, and in fact, in the Sefer HaTishbi, he quotes the cardinal, and he says over Torah from the cardinal. So you would think he would not be, imagine somebody like that today. Forget it. Not only he would be cherem, he would be chopped up. However, Rav Yaakov Emden wrote Hagola on the Sefer HaTishbi. The Pri Megadim wrote a sefer on the Sefer HaTishbi. Unbelievable. Anyway, in the Sefer...
Did the cardinal become a Jew afterwards?
The cardinal? No. Not that I know of. Anyway, it says the Sefer HaTishbi. I'll even tell you what he says over from the cardinal. I'll tell you Torah that he says from the cardinal. He says that the word Italy... if you look in Rashi, the cardinal says, Rashi says that when Yaakov Avinu stole the brachos, so Esav comes in, and Esav says, "Habracha achas, you have one bracha for me." So his father said, "Okay, I'll give you. Hine mishmani haaretz yeh ma'ishavecha. I'll give you the fat of the land." Rashi says, "Mishmani haaretz du Italia shel Yavan, Italy. I'll give you Italy." Zok the cardinal says the Sefer Tishbi. It wasn't the whole country; it was Calabria. By the way, that's where the many people get their esrogim from that region in Italy. It's a very fertile region, and the Sefer HaTishbi quotes the cardinal saying Pshat and Rashi. Anyway, you heard it here. Fine. So
Edom was Rome, right? Edom was
yeah.
Is that going to be
I don't know. We'll find out. I don't know. Anyway, the Sefer HaTishbi writes, what does Sefer HaKrisos mean? In the Torah it says, because of Sefer Krisos. The Targum says, get Peturin. In Sefer Yeshaya, Metargem, Igeres, Peturin. You pass me Chumash?
Yeah.
In Sefer Yeshaya, Perek Nun, Pasuk Ches.
I passed it.
Thank you. In Yeshaya, Perek Nun, Pasuk Ches. By the way, when do we lay in Yeshaya, Perek Nun, Pasuk Ches? I think one of the Shivadin Achemta. Do we? In the Pasuk, Eze Krisos. Last week, you ready? Excuse me, Parshas Ekev. Perek Nun, Pasuk Ches. No. Koyamar Hashem, Eze Sefer Krisos Imchem Asher Shilachtia. What is Sefer Krisos? Targum says, Igeres Peturin. Yirmiyah, Igeres, get Peturin. The Balei Tosfos say, why does the get have 12 lines? Why? Because of the other Sfarim. So 2 kashas. Number 1, the reason why it's called get is because it has 12 lines. All shtaris are called get, and they don't have 12 lines. And number 2, that's the reason why it's called a get, because it has 12 lines. So call it a dach, or call it a haz, or call it a tag, or call it a yib. You know? You have so many nice options. Yab, tag, haz, dach. I mean, where did get come from? So that's the question. So there's a sefer called Kehilas Yaakov from Yaakov Chagiz, and he quotes the Sefer HaTishbi. Now he's one of the early Mikubam. He had no problems with the Sefer HaTishbi. Apparently neither did Rabbi Yaakov Emden or the Pri Megadim. Now if Rabbi Yaakov Emden had a problem with something, he would let you know. Okay? So he had no problem that he's quoting Torah from the cardinal. That's unbelievable. He quotes the Sefer HaTishbi, and he asks, so he quotes the Tishbi's Kasha, Dach, Haz, Tag, says the Kehilas Yaakov, V'ani shamati tam, lama shenikra get. Mishum de'echad ha'ish ve'echad ha'isha bo'em lihipared zamizeh. The husband and wife are coming to separate. Kishabam lesgarish. Uv'chol ha'Torah kula. And in the whole Torah, kol ha'oisiyos nekravim echad al echad, all the letters of the Torah, you will find either one place or another, back to back. Ab, bag, gad, da, hav, vaz, zach, chat, ti, yak, kal. You get the point? Yeah? Going av, ba, gad, dog, yotze. Loi kain ba'ois gimel v'tes, shaloi nimtza b'chol hachaf dalid, sheyia teva, me'ois gimel v'tes b'yachad. You will never find in kol ha'Torah kula, gimel and tes together. There are millions of combinations. You'll never find the Gimel and Tes together. It's the only... No. V'alkein koshma get loymar kishem shashteyos is Elohim mufrados. Just like these two letters are so separate. Ve'in lam achdus, they have no unity. Kach aidei ksivas haget, the husband and wife are becoming nifrad. By the way, there are another two letters that have never come together, and that are the letters Gimel and Samach, Gas, meaning grub. They don't come together, but we'll talk about that maybe another time. But the only two letters that the Kiyos Yaakov says,
grub meaning food or grub meaning fat?
It means very physical. It could mean arrogant also. Yeah. Gasa, right. So but it doesn't say that in the Torah. Those are right. Yeah, right. So the reason why it's called a get is because these are the only two letters in Kol HaTorah Kula that we'll never find together. Again, we see that the description of a document of divorce is, since in the Torah these two letters never come together, so too when a husband and wife are separating, Chas v'Shalom, we use the letters Gimel and Tes. By the way, comes Rabbi Yaakov Emden in his commentary to the Sefer HaTishbi, he says, Lama loy nikra dachai haz, that he quotes the Darshei Reshumos, that the same shot, that all the Aleph Beis are Mischaber Zum Zu, to build a Teva on Lashon HaKodesh, meaning it's not just these two letters never come together and therefore the document of divorce is called a get. The way letters work are, two letters are brought together to build a construct of a word, except for the letters Gimel Tes, because nothing can be built from them. Therefore the decomposition, the taking apart of this mishpacha and this couple, the word to use is Gimel Tes. By the way, comes a Pri Megadim, and the Pri Megadim quotes the same idea from the Sefer HaChaim, Rabbeinu Betzalel, the brother of the Maharal, that B'chol HaTorah Kula, you will never find Gimel and Tes together. So he asks, what about Gimel and Samach? You don't find? So he says, yeah, but what? So call a get a gas. Why are you calling it a get? Call it a guess. He says, no, the reason why it's called a get is sometimes get toiv, Rashi Teva, sometimes it's good. For example, if the woman commits ervas davar, then it's a good thing. But otherwise, that's why we pick it. Fine. By the way, in the Sefer Kerem Shloimeh of Rav Shloimeh Has, he brings down the same idea, that you never find the letters Gimel and Tes together, and he attributes it to none other than Uveshem Hagoin Marenu Eliyahu Vilna Shamati, the same shot. Okay, very interesting. Moreover, Rabbi say, to try to understand why the document of divorce, we have 12 lines, because in the Torah, breaking apart is 12. What does this husband and wife got to do with the krisis of the Torah? What does the husband and wife have to do with the fact that in the Torah, the Gimel and Tes are never together? There is a Rishon who's given a title that no other Rishon Achron is given, a very unique title, and that is, there was one of the Rishonim, who is really the Rebbe of many of the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Gershon. He's called Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola. You ever hear that expression? Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola. I just want you to know, this is not just like one of these things that the Al-Shech HaKadosh, who called him the Al-Shech HaKadosh? Klal Yisrael calls him that, Or the Or Chaim, what his mother named him, V'yikar Shema B'Yisrael Or Chaim HaKadosh? Klal Yisrael is Makabel. So when we call, and that's also meaningful, but when we call Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola, it's not just Klal Yisrael. If you look in Tosfos and Rashi, they call him this title Meor Hagola. Look, he made many takanos. He made many takanos. Look at number 7. The Kol Shekain, this is the Tshuvos of Chachmei Tzarfas Velotir. This is the Tshuva of Rashi. The Kol Shekain Rabbeinu Gershon Zechet Tzadik V'Kosh Bracha Sheheir Einei Goyla. He illuminated the eyes of the Galas. It's a very incredible title. Pashtos, the reason why he's given that title, Rashi says, V'kulanu mipiv chayin, we all live by his mouth. V'chol b'nei Galas Ashkenaz, V'kitim Talmidei Talmidav. All of Germany, all of Rome, they're all his students. So Rashi calls him Rabbeinu Gershon, Sheheir Einei Goyla. Toisus imenachai samachei amebez uvesefer shekasav Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Einei Hagola. Why was he Zoicha of all the Rishonim to be called Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola? It's half love a fella. And this is quoted in many Svarim. I'm just going to quote to you a few. He brings over here, this is the question of Rabbi Meir Yechiel Halevi Meoistrovtsa, the Oivstrovtsa, who is Mamish Goin Nifla. He says, B'Shem Hagon Rabbi Meir Yechiel Halevi Meoistrovtsa Tam L'Shvach Mashazocha Rabbeinu Gershon Sheyikru Oisai Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola Mashalezocha Shum Goin V'Tzadik. Rashi's not called Rabbeinu Yitzchak Meor Hagola. The Rambam's not called that. Why Rabbeinu Gershon? V'gam adua dafka shem zeh. Why this? Why not Rashka Bahag? What's the Indian Meir Einei Hagola? We all know Rabbeinu Gershon made many takanos. We all know two of them. Takana number 1, it's brought down in Even HaEzer, Siman Aleph, Sif Yud, and the Shulchan Aruch doesn't just give us the halacha. He quotes Rabbeinu Gershon. Rabbeinu Gershon Hechrim. He put in Cherem. Al hanoise al ishtoi. If you marry a second wife. It's interesting, Shulchan Aruch brings it down. This one the Shulchan Aruch brings down. Maybe Teimanim, maybe others. It's the Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershon. Yeah. I'm not getting into now who is it binding on. That was a Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershon. And it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. You can't marry two wives. The second Cherem of Rabbeinu Gershon is in Even HaEzer, Siman Kuf Yotes Siv Vav. Yachal legarsha v'lo daita. You could divorce a woman against her will. Va'afil ein lo l'shalem la. Even if you can't pay her. The ksuba. She can't stop. You could divorce her and she'll take you to court. V'choza midina, says the Rama. Ava Rabbeinu Gershon hechrim shaloi legarish isha shaloi midaita. Im lo shavar al das Rabbeinu Gershon put a cherem on someone not to divorce a woman against her will. So 2 charomim Rabbeinu Gershon made. You can't marry a second wife, and you can't divorce a woman against her will. Well,
You can't divorce a woman
against her will. Well, here's the idea. The idea is, why did Rabbeinu Gershon do this? Well, you could think of the obvious reasons. The obvious reasons are, not a good idea to have more than one wife. And to divorce a wife against her will, also he's protecting the woman. But we all know that there's a concept that our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom is a relationship of husband and wife. The Rebbeinu Shalom, so to speak, is our husband, and we are his spouse. Hashem is our chasan, and we are his kala. Now, with any relationship, there could be rocky times. And if the kala is not doing her end of the deal, the chasan could say, this is not what I had in mind. And he could tell her, go fly a kite. There's a Parsha of Gershon in the Torah. We know the Rebbeinu Shalom keeps the Torah. Well, there's an opt-out. What's going to happen if the Rebbeinu Shalom tells us, look, I married you. Once upon a time, you're a beautiful woman, you had beautiful character, but you ain't the same kala as you once were. V'kasav lo sefer krisos. So the Rebbeinu Shalom has 2 options. He could either get rid of us against our will, or he could say, fine, you want to stay, but I'm going to take the Japanese also. Or I'm going to take Chveis, North Korea. Or I'm going to take whoever I want. You don't want to get out of the house? No problem. I'm going to bring in a tzar, l'teich beisai. The Rebbeinu Shalom has 2 options. He could get rid of us against our will, or he could take another wife as well. Comes Rabbeinu Gershon, and he ties the hands of the Rebbeinu Shalom. He says, you can't get rid of someone against your will, and you can't take a second wife. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom is also bound by the Shulchan Aruch. Therefore, says the Oistrovtsa, Rabbeinu Gershon protected Klal Yisrael in the darkness of Galus, in the dark times of Galus, when we're on a very low madrega, and maybe we're scared, what's going to happen? The Rebbeinu Shalom says Ezehu Krisos Kasav Li, V'Kasav La Sefer Krisos, or I'll take someone else. The Yibam Shem opens up the Shulchan Aruch, Even Ezer, Siman Aleph, Sif Yud, Rabbeinu Gershon, Hichrim, Al Hanoisei, Ishtai, Al Ishtai. And then Rabbeinu Shem, okay, so I guess I'll have to take somebody else. No, Siman Kuf Yates, Sif Vav, Al Choza Medina, Al Rabbeinu Gershon, Hichrim, Shalei Lagarish, Isha, Shalei Midaita. Well, look over here, number 13.
But in the Shiur in the Torah, Hashem will never create Hashem is someone. And the Rabbi Hashem promised forever. We never been.
Yeah, he'll send us alimony. He'll give us very generous checks in the mail every month. He'll send us checks in the mail. Azoi zokt, Rabbi Meir Yechiel, Oishav, so look what he says. V'amar shetakanoisav u'gzeiroisav shal oisoi kadosh, that tzedek nitnu loy shem zeh. He deserved the title. Davka. Ushtayim mitakanoisav misnoisasois ka'avnei nezer, and two of his takanois, they shine like gems, mi bein kulam. What are they? It's also to divorce one's wife against her will, and it's also to take two wives. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Klal Yisrael was karas bris, like a husband with his wife. Like Chazal Darshan, Mayrasha, Al Tikri Mayrasha Ela Me'urasa. And if we're not Nimtzachein Ve'ena, because of our Averos, what's going to happen if he divorces us? Comes Rabbeinu Gershon Maragoyla. He's Matzilenu, that he's Asr Legarish Bal Karchach, and Tzaddik is Goizer, and Hashem is Mekayim. But maybe Hashem will take another wife? No. Ulam oinu chalachshu yivra HaKadosh Baruch Hu oidu mazula seina la'avdai v'nei bata comes Rabbeinu Gershon Maragoyla, and he guards us from that you're now to take another wife, and therefore he saved us in our galus, so that we're not lost in our sins, and we're not distanced from the Yibam Shalom. It's all in the zchus Rabbeinu Gershon Maragoyla, and therefore we call him the name Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola.
Maybe you could say the gematria of Kadosh Baruch Hu Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26.
Okay.
And when you're divorced, you're chaser from the 26. That's why you have 12 on each side. That's the
12.
13.
Gets 12.
Right.
Half of Kadosh Baruch Hu, each the man and the wife are 13. But when you get divorced, you don't have 13 anymore. You have 12. That's the get.
Okay.
Smile.
Okay. By the way, who says over this vart from the Oishtravsa, you range for Gedolei Yisrael from mamish one end of the spectrum to the next. So in the Sefer Mahari Tav, Rav Aaron Teitelbaum, he quotes that he heard from the Satmar Rebbe that the reason why Rabbeinu Gershon is called Meor Hagola is because Rabbeinu Gershon was goizer not to marry two wives. He's also Mesake not to be Megarish Shalom Midaita. And these two takanos are what are Meir Eineno Begaluseno. Like the pasuk says, V'haya v'yemahu tikra'u ishi. And we don't have to worry that Hashem might look at Isha Acheres Na Mimenu. There's a Sefer Maisa Shahaya who brings from Yehuda Leib Maimon. We spoke about him last week, who says the same vart, that the reason why he's called Rabbeinu Gershon Meor Hagola is for this reason. In fact, the story goes, it's brought in the Sefer Elef Hamagen, in a footnote, that in the Sefer Toldois Chachmei Hadoros, of Agon Rav Moshe Yor Weinstock, one time the Rav from Vanvelitz was traveling with Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi Oistravsa to Shinov. To Shinov. Yeah, you're related to the Shinova, right? Divrei Cheska, yeah? Rabbi Meir came, and the Rav over there said, Gevaldik, we need a Heter Meir Rabbanim over here, because we know that even though Rabbeinu Gershon was made a takana, you can't marry more than one wife. If you have a Heter Meir Rabbanim, if you have 100 rabbis, they sign, for whatever reason, you can marry a second wife. And it's utilized today. And they wanted Rabbi Meir to sign on it. He says, I don't sign on Heter Meir Rabbanim. You know why? Because the reason why Rabbeinu Gershon made the takana of not to marry more than one wife is so that the Ribbanu Shel Olam does not take another ummah. if I sign, what's going to happen? The Rebbe Shem goes up to Shemayim and says, oh, maybe I need to get a heter Meir Rabbanim. I'm going to get 100 Malachi Ashares to sign, to take the Japanese. He says, I don't get involved in heter Meir Rabbanim. That's one version of the story. The Satmar version of the story, it's brought over here in a Sefer Toras HaTamarim, that a different version of the story that they once asked Rabbi Meir to sign on a heter Meir Rabbanim. A certain Rebbe asked him to sign. He says like this: I don't sign on heter Meir Rabbanims. Why? Because I'm a Rav of a city. Rav of a city is always in jeopardy because people don't like rabbis, no matter what. So that's why I always say you might as well tell them the right thing because they're not going to like you either way, you know. So the problem is that he said, if I sign a heter Meir Rabbanim, I'm always worried about my kehillah. Either they're going to fire me, they're going to divorce me, or they're going to get me an assistant rabbi, right? So, therefore, I'm makbid gamor. I never sign on heter Meir Rabbanim. Because if I allow somebody to get rid of their wife or take another one, then they're going to do that to me. But you're a Rebbe. Everybody loves you anyway, so you don't have to worry they're going to get rid of you, he says. Okay. So what do we see from here, Rabbi Yisai? We see from here that what's the concept? The concept is that the relationship between a husband and wife is analogous to the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Knesset Yisrael. And by us being steadfast and loyal to our spouse, the Rebbeinu Shalom responds midah keneged midah, that he doesn't get rid of us. He doesn't take another wife. He doesn't get rid of us bal karchach. In other words, Malchusa d'shmaya ke Malchusa d'ara. The way we are noyeg down here is how the Rebbeinu Shalom is noyeg in Shamayim. Rav David Cohen in the Sefer Birchas Yavitz has a tremendous maracha on this yesod, where he writes some very, very interesting things in the Sefer Birchas Yavitz. And the Medrash tells us, look at number 18. The Medrash in Shir HaShiurim tells us on the pasuk, Pischi li achoisi rayasi yainasi samasi. That when were we yainasi? When were we a dove? In the times of the Yevanim, in times of the Greeks. Now, what does that mean? In the times of the Greeks, we were like a dove. So he explains as follows. We know what animal is Greece compared to. In the dreams of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, we know that Nebuchadnezzar saw the Babylonians, he saw them as a lion. First of all, the Babylonians were the mightiest empire. They were the first of the empires, the king of the jungle. Then came the Paras. Persians, he saw them as a bear. Why? So the Maharal explains. The bears are corpulent, they eat a lot, they sleep a lot. Like Achashverosh, he ate, he slept, he was a Baal Taiva. The Persian Empire, he saw them as Balei Taiva. Then came the Greeks. The Greeks were seen as what animal? A leopard. Why a leopard? Well, one thing is, a leopard is very bold, heavy az kanomer. So too, the Greeks were into chachma. To know wisdom, you have to be bold. In ha-baishan lamed. But Rav David Cohen wants to explain, why is the Greek nation compared to the leopard? Now, if this shiur is somewhat racist, sorry. Okay, so the pasuk in Yirmiyah says, can a kushi change his skin? So too then a leopard could change his spots. Okay, right? It says, Hayahafoch kushi oiroi v'nomer chaburoisav. It says, can a kushi change his skin? Can a leopard change it? I mean, what do you want? What are you bringing the kushi in over here? Like, what is? You could say a million things. Can an elephant take off its trunk? There are a billion things you could think of. Nothing changes. What's the connection between a kushi and a nomer? The answer is as follows. The Gemara says that Klal Yisrael, the Gemara in Kedushin says on Daf Ayin, that instead of Klal Yisrael being holy like Kruvim, they made themselves like a leopard. Rashi says a leopard is not makbid on their zivug. The leopard goes from one mate to the next. Of all the animals, the one which is least loyal to its mate is the nomer. So what do we see from here? The Namer is not loyal to its spouse. By the way, as opposed to who? The Yoina. The Yoina never changes its spouse.
One dies, never gets another spouse.
Never remarries. Is loyal to the spouse. Fine. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says there were 3 animals that had relations on the Teva, and they were all punished. The dog, the raven, and Chum. Chum, his skin was stricken. You got it? Yeah? Right? You know what happened to Chum? Yeah? Chum became Kushi. Interesting. So what do we see from here? That what's the punishment of those who are not loyal and those who are not chaste? The skin turns into dark. That's the punishment of those who are not loyal. It happened to Chum. That's why the Nomer has spots. The spot is, it's not loyal. And that's very good. He makes the point, the raven is black. That's why the Kushi, Oirei Shachar, because he's a Ben Chum. The Nomer has Chaburais, because he's not Makbid al Zugai. That's why the Gemara in Seitzei says that if the Seitzei is proven to be clean, v'niksa v'nizra zara. How do we show her innocence? If she used to give birth to Shechorim, Yoledes Levanim, the children's skin are whiter. So Rav David Cohen brings down from doctors that what ingredient in the skin produces the darkness of color? Melanin. That's what causes the darkness of skin. We know that a Kushi has a lot more melanin than others. Now, everybody has a certain degree of this. In a person's body, the highest concentration of melanin is in the reproductive organ, the Machon Maggid. So he brings down over here. I'll let you see the number. We'll leave it at that, okay? That much And therefore, he says, because they were not modest and they went migeder hatznios, that ingredient which is concentrated ba'oisai ever spread b'chol gufam. He says it could be.
It happened to dogs.
What?
He said dogs also have relations on the.
What didn't happen to dogs? Why? Because
Why were they punished?
maybe they did. I don't know. By the way, it could be that's why there's a halacha esrog hakushi is pasul. Esrog hakushi is pasul. Why is Yavan called a namer? One of the gzeros of Yavan was called hamaares isha tiboel lehegmain tchila. The Gemara in Ksubas and Naf Gimel. That one of the gzeros of the Greeks, where anyone who got engaged, the Greek emperor would have relations with them. Why? In order to be poigeya in the zivug of Klal Yisrael, because they're like a leopard. Why are they called a leopard? They're called a leopard because a leopard is not makbid on their zivug. By the way, one of the gzeros of the Yevanim was, the Rambam says, Pashtu Yadam Bivnoseyam, based on this Gemara in Ksubis, that Kol ha-ma'aras isha tibal lehegmain tchila. Then he says an amazing thing. The Gemara says in Ksubis, in Yehuda, meaning there's Yehuda and Galil. By the way, if you want to know where I'm at, I'm in number 18. I'm right over here on page 3. In Yehuda, if you marry a woman, right, in this week's Parsha, Moitzi Shemra. So Allah, somebody marries a woman, and he says, well, what's going on? I expected her to be a basula. Right? You could say, and Tainis basula, it's a mekachtos. In Yehuda, there was no mekachtos. Why? They were meyached with the kala before the marriage. And therefore, no kidding, she's not a basula. They did yichud before. So he says over here, and not only that, they did birchas nesuin at the time of erison. Why did they do that? What in Yehuda? They were not sanuim. They had yichud at the time of the erison. No, it was just the opposite. I never knew this. It wasn't that in Yehuda they were nichshal with the kala. In Yehuda they were makbid to be meyached and to have relations immediately. Why? Because since there was a gzeira of kol ha'ma'aras isha tibal lehegmain tchila, And they were worried that if the woman would be taken right after Erisin before relations with her husband, she would have relations with the Hegmoin Beratzain. So Memela, what they did was they were Meyachid in Yehuda, and the Ish V'Isha already did basically the Zivug immediately, in order to engender Ava between Ish V'Isha, so that if the Hegman would come later, it was Ba'inus Gamor. I never knew that. It was done explicitly to make sure to preserve the sanctity of the Jewish marriage. Not in Yehuda, they were more prutzim, just the opposite. In order to preserve Yoinasi, they were meyachid at the time of Erisin. And they wanted that, let the Greeks know she's a Ba'ula immediately, so that they wouldn't take her in the first place. Okay. Memela, because there's a concept, Ein Isha Kareses Bris, Elel Misha Sakli. Fine. So what do we see? Look in the bottom paragraph. That Klal Yisrael were Moiser Nefesh, and they did different tachbulos in the times of the Yevanim, not to destroy the institution of marriage. But on the other hand, we see the Yevanim wanted to ruin the zivug of Klal Yisrael, Bein Ish L'Ishtai. Says Rav David Cohn, that while the Yevanim were trying to destroy the Zivug Bein Ish L'Ishtai, because Kol HaMa'aras Isha Tibal Hegman Tchila, Klal Yisrael were looking to preserve the Achdus and the Zivug Bein Ish L'Ishtai. So when were Klal Yisrael called Yoinasi? In the times of the Yevanim. And we know that what color is the Yoina? The Yoina is white, no melanin. As opposed to the Oirev, the Oirev is black, because the Oirev was nichshal in tashmish on the teba. Maybe that's why the Yevanim are called. It says in the pasuk in Bereshis, it says like this: V'ha'aretz hoysasoyu v'avoyu v'choshech. Soyu is Bavel, voyu is Paras. Choshech! Yavan. Why is Yavan called Choshech? Because darkness, chashchas, is a siman of immorality. That's why Yavan is called Choshech. But here's the question. If Klal Yisrael are calling... what are Klal Yisrael called in times of Yevanim? Yoinasi. Why are we called Yoinasi? Because we were loyal to our spouses. But that's not why the Rebbeinu Shalom is calling us Yoinasi. The Rebbeinu Shalom is calling us Yoinasi because we're loyal to Him. But I don't understand what's going on over here. Here we're trying to say Klal Yisrael were called Yoinasi because we did everything we could to preserve the sanctity of the union of husband and wife. But that's not what Rebbeinu Shalom meant. Yoinasi, he meant, you're loyal to me. But the pshat is like this. In Kol HaTarakula, we never find that Hashem is jealous, or angry, or kas, or kina, only by Avodah Zarah. Why? The answer is because kina is what you have when you see that your wife is not faithful. Likewise, when is Rebbeinu Shalom jealous and angry? When his doidi, when his rei, when his yoina seems to be unfaithful by serving avodah zarah and taking another god. That means the concept and the yachas between Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the yachas between Isha and Abayla. U'kamay d'machusa d'rakiah k'machusa d'ara. Meaning, says Rav David Cohn, the concept here is that when Klal Yisrael is faithful to their spouse, and Klal Yisrael is yoinasi bein ish leisha, then the Rebbeinu Shalom says, then I am faithful to you. Then you are loyal to me by being loyal to your spouse. You're my yoina, and I am designated to you when you're designated bein ish l'ishtai. And when you try to preserve that Yehuda they were meyached to make sure that the woman is not taken by the hegemon, then I make sure that I am yours. In other words, the relationship between ish ve'isha is the mashal between Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That again, the same way we pointed out that Rabbeinu, Gershon, Meor Hagola is our light in exile. Because since a man cannot divorce Baal Karchach, and a man cannot take Isha al Isha, so too Rebbeinu Shalom cannot get rid of us, and the Rebbeinu Shalom cannot divorce us Baal Karchach. But what we're bringing out, that's what happened in times of Chanukah. That we are called Yoinasi to Hashem when we are Yoinasi Bein Ish L'Isha. So it's an amazing thing. We find two gezeros of the Yevanim. Why? One gezerah of the Yevanim was Kol ha shekol isha hanises tibal lehegmain tchila. Another gezerah we find of the Yevanim is Kisvu al keren hashar she'ein lachem chelek b'lekei Yisrael. Right on the horn of an ox that you're not connected to God. Are these two separate gezeros? It's the same exact gezerah. Once the relationship between husband and wife is not faithful, you're severed from God right away. The connection a person has to Rebbeinu Shalom, the loyalty Hashem has to you, the deveikus Hashem has to you, is the loyalty and the connection and deveikus you have bein ish l'isha. Ish ve'isha shalom beinayim, shchina beinayim. There's the yud in the ish, there's the hey in the isha. That's the Shem Hashem. It's not a mashal. It's mamish, an exact parallel. That the stronger the bond is between ish ve'isha, the stronger the bond is between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. And when the kedushin and the nesuin in Klal Yisrael is a kedusha v'tahara and deveikus and loyal, then the Ribbanu Shalom's deveikus to Klal Yisrael is steadfast, is yoinasi samasi. The Yevanim made one gezerah. It's not two different gezeras. Ish kol isha hanisei sebal atafsher tchila and ein lachem chelek b'Yisrael Yisrael. Mamela, if we get to violate your arusa, then we are disconnecting you, not only husband and wife, we're disconnecting the Rebbeinu Shalom from Avichem Shabbat Shamayim. That being the case, we understand then why the get has 12 lines. Well, because in the Torah, the separation in the Torah is 12 lines, therefore a get has 12 lines. Or because in the Torah the letters get and tes are not together, therefore that's how you break up husband and wife. Yeah, that's it, exactly. Because the more mistabik the ish ve'isha is, the more Rebbeinu Shalom is mistabik to you. The breakup between ish ve'isha is the breakup of the Torah itself. It's the breakup between Yisrael v'Kodesh Brichu. And that's the limud of get. And that's why Chazal tell us at the end of Masechta Kedushin, Kol HaMegarish Ishtai Afilu Mizbeach Moyed Alav Demois. Because where did Hashem create a person from? From the Makam HaMizbeach. He created man from the Makam HaMizbeach. And why did Hashem create man? Rav Miller used to say that before Hashem created man, the Ruach Elokim Rachefes Al Pnei Hamayim. Hashem was hovering over the waters. Why is he hovering over the waters? There are a lot of planes that they could land on the water, right? You ever see it? There are planes that could land on the water. So if a plane could land on the water, why couldn't God land on the water? Why is he hovering? The answer is, God needs to rest where? On a Jew, but not on one Jew. On Ish Ve'isha. He's waiting for the Mishkan, for the Beis HaMikdash, which is the house of Ish Ve'isha B'Shalom. And in that case, that's why Hashem created man from the Makam HaMizbeach. And the breakup, Afilu Mizbeach, Moyed Alav, the Moyed Shabbat, Agin Shabbos, Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.